Hello, Kristen here, and today I'm working with something very special. I'm going to be working with gesso and clear gesso from the Hot Mess line. Now both the journal and the gesso is all made by hand by artisans in the US. And it's a small batch company, so what that means is that each little pot of gesso is mixed 1 gallon at a time, and that ensures that it's always fresh, which is really incredible. I'm going to show you a few different ideas on how to use gesso, starting with probably the most obvious, which is to use it to prep a surface. Now so that's one way to utilize the gesso, and that's the most obvious way, is to prep a surface. You can also use gesso to prep, like say you wanted to paint on cardstock, but maybe the cardstock isn't quite strong enough. You can prep it with a layer or two of gesso, and then you'll be able to paint right on top of it. So that's, again, the most obvious way to use the gesso. Another means of using the gesso, you can put down a thick layer, and you can use it to create texture. And you can use like a palette knife and draw into it. And make marks. You can use other mark making tools like silicone pieces. And then you can let that dry and then paint over the top of it, and that's going to provide some really interesting textures to your pieces. Another thing that you can do with gesso, you can grab a stencil and a palette knife, and you can scrape that gesso right through the stencil with the palette knife. I do this when I want more of a subtle texture in my art journal or canvas. But as you can see, it's slightly raised up, but this just provides such a fun and unique surface to then add to later on. And I also find that doing textural things like this will also help me break that blank page. And by that I mean, you know, when you first get a new journal, especially one as special as this one, where it has been, you know, handmade and you can really feel the love, you can feel almost a sense of almost intimidation, like anything that you do in this has to be perfect. And so I think that busting out some gesso and just putting down some layers, making some marks, adding in some textural details before you then go in and create an art journal page is a really incredible way to break that blank page. So I showed you a lot with the white gesso. I did not show you much with the clear, but it is the same concept. It's going to be harder, of course, for you to see it on camera. But I like to work with the clear when I'm building collage layers. Like, for instance, I'm going to grab a piece of sheet music that I will then glue into my journal with the clear gesso. Alright, there we go. So, clear gesso is great for those pages where you already have something really awesome on the page and you don't want to lose that. White gesso, of course, using that is you're gonna, paint whatever it is white, whereas the clear will maintain the integrity of the original object, like this collage element that I just put down in the journal. So I certainly hope that gives you a few ideas for ways that you can utilize your hot mess gesso. And also, of course, experiment and play and break that blank page in your handmade journal.